hit 'em a little, hit 'em, hit 'em, hit 'em, hit 'em, hit 'em a little, hit 'em, hit 'em, I don't know how my mother walked her trouble down. I don't know how my father stood his ground. I don't know how my people survived slavery. I do remember, that's why I believe.
Good afternoon, good people. I am Mary Ella Grandberry, and I come to tell you how much this Juneteenth means to me. You see, my daddy was a preacher, and he preached for this day to come true before the surrender, you know, that Civil War. Before it come, Daddy used to travel around in secret to all the plantations, and my mama would hum. She would hum a song to let us know that Daddy was around down by the river. And we would sneak off to meet him, way deep in the bush. And sometimes the drivers or patrollers, they would be sneaking around too to hear my daddy's sermon, you know. So he would preach to us in a secret code. And Mama would hum. She would hum. And that's how we know to meet down by the river to hear my daddy preach. I remember my daddy, just what he used to say to all of us. When Israel was in Egypt land, suffering, suffering, suffering. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. The suffering, suffering, suffering. Then my mama would hum, now Moses way down in Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. We is gathered here, my peoples, in this howling wilderness, for to speak some words of comfort to each other in distress. And we choose this for our subject. This we'll explain it by and by. And the Lord said, Moses, Moses. And the man said, here am I. Now old Pharaoh down in Egypt was the worst man ever born. And he had them Hebrew children down there working in his corn. Yes, he did. Till the Lord got tired of his fooling and says, here, I let him know. Look here, Moses, you go tell Pharaoh for to let them children go. And if he refused to do it, I will make him rule the hour, for I'll empty down on Egypt all the vials of my power. Yes, he did. And old Pharaoh's army wasn't worth a half a dime. For the Lord to help his children, you can trust him every time. And your enemies may sail you in the back or in the front, but the Lord is all around you, so to bear that battle's brunt. And they can forge your chains and shackles from the river, from the mountain to the sea. But the Lord will send some Moses for to set his children free. And the land shall hear the thunder like a blast from Gabriel's horn, for the Lord of hosts is mighty when he girds his armor on. But for fear someone mistakes me, I will pause right here to say that I ain't a preaching ancient. I was talking about today. But I tell you, fellow Christians, things is happening mighty strange. Now the Lord, he done this for Israel, and his ways don't never change. And the love he showed to Israel wasn't all on Israel's spin. Now don't you run and tell your masters that I was preaching discontent, because I isn't. I was judging Bible people by their acts. I was giving you the scriptures. I was handing you the facts. Because old Pharaoh believed in slavery. But the Lord, he let him see that the people he put breath in, every mother's son was free. And there's others that thinks like Pharaoh, and they call the scripture liar. But the Bible say that a servant is worthy of his hire. Now you can't get round or through that, and you can't get over it. For whatever place you gets into, this here Bible too will fit. So you see, the Lord's intentions ever since the world began was that his almighty freedom would belong to every man. But I think it would be better if I'd pause again to say that I was talking about our freedom in a Biblistic way. But the Moses is a-coming, and he's coming showing fast. We can feel his feet are trumping. We can hear his trumpet blast. But I want to warn you people, don't you get too briggity, and don't you get to bragging about these things. You just wait and see. But when Moses with his power come to set us cheering free, we shall praise the gracious Master that have give us our liberty, and we'll shout our hallelujahs on that mighty reckoning day, when we is recognized as citizens. Children, let us pray.
If the earth could fly.
Well, we prayed. Well, they hung my daddy right after them sermons he gave because he wouldn't stop preaching. We always prayed for our freedom, though, because they told me that I was born a slave. But in my heart and my mind and my soul, I knew I was always free. Now it's freedom time in this place called America. Sure feel good just to holler it out the word. Now that I can read and write, I could spell it too. Freedom. You know, it's a doggone shame that we had to suffer under that bull whip for 2.5 long years before we even knew about freedom. That's right. That emancipation procrastination they say that President Lincoln wrote, it didn't emancipate or free any of us, especially down in the deep South. Half of us didn't even know the war was over in Maryland. I tell you, after 246 years of slavery, stolen from Africa to this here place called America, this is the only home we ever knowed. Well, plenty of slaves didn't know they was free. We couldn't read or write. We was kept in the dark, working the same way. Long after the surrender. That's what we called it, the surrender. Then one day we heard by word of mouth that some General Granger, he rode into some place called Galveston, Texas, and he read out loud something they called the General Order Number 3. But that wasn't until 2.5 years after the war had ended. Oh, my grandma was from the Kosan in the Congo of Africa. And she would gather us youngers around and tell us how we got to be slaves and how we was all born into this hellish life. You want to know how? Well, first they take away your name, who you really is. And some even would get branded as property of their owners. Some take their owners' names and others throw them away, and they took back their African names, but not many. They keep you from talking your own language, and you just catch on to what they saying. No reading or writing. You can get your finger cut off if you read. You can get your foot cut off if you try to run away. They punish you real bad. Then they take away your religion. Now, we come from all different spiritual places over there in Africa. So they make us here and bring us here and tell us their religion. Something called Christianity. With that God that looked just like them. Then they take away your family, selling off your children, your brothers, your sisters, your mama, your daddy. And if you don't know who your daddy is, they sell you off for money in their pocket. And we get to work for nothing. No money, no land, nothing for us. Nothing for us. I can read now. And I wrote this here book to tell you my own stories. Right here in this book. You want to hear them? Good, I'm glad you came here to hear these here true stories. We that lived it must tell it. So America will never forget it and it won't ever happen again. No more bullwhip days. No more slavery. Ever. Well, we would hear about the uprising long before that there war started. You know, whispers of freedom and coming and freedom fighters like Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, and John Brown. Yeah, the news just went from plantation to plantation. And while we was acting natural and some of us even a little bit more polite than usual, we was always praying for our freedom. How we lived. Huh. If you want to call it living. Well, us, since we live in a little one-room cabin just off down the road from the big house. Life weren't very much for us because we had to work and slave all the time. My papa and mama was sold up from the South Carolinas up to Maryland. My mama's name was Margaret Keller, and my pappy was Adam Keller. His daddy was his massa. And most slaves don't even know who they pappy and they mammy was half the time because they bred the people just like they was cattle. I had 5 sisters and 2 brothers. But we all was owned by Master Jack and his wife, Missy. Master Jack's house was a big old house. All his brothers and his wife's kinfolks lived in that big house. They had a whole lot. But to look at them, you'd think they was just regular old poor buckras. There was lots of cabins for the slaves, but they wasn't fit for nobody to live in. We just had to put up with them. We froze in the winter and burned up in the summer in them shacks. Master Jack had about one of the biggest plantations in that section. I guess he had over 100 slaves on the place. I never know exactly how many there was or how big the place was, but it was a terrible place. Beating and whippings went on day and night. Screams of torment and mercy kept us in our place. One time, Master Jack sold off one of my sisters and one of my brothers. He sell them, and he had folks come for him when my mama was working in the fields. When she come back, she raised a ruckus. Oh, I see my mama plop right down on the floor, setting and crying and screaming and hollering and cussing and crying. But mama allowed there was nothing could be done because it was slavery laws used to keep us down and hurting. Mama said, oh Lord, let me see the end of it before I die and I'll quit my cussing and fighting and raging. It's just too much. My mama say she was part Injun. And that's why she got on so bad and mad all the time. My childhood, ever since I could remember, we worked hard, from sun up to sundown. When I was a little gal, I had to carry 2 heavy water buckets to the field hands. When I got older, I was chopping wood, cleaning the barn, and working in the big house. Back then, we do everything ourselves. You know, we made everything on that plantation from scratch. We'd use batting blocks and batting sticks to wash the clothes down by the river. All the women did it. We made our own lye soap. I worked hard always. You can't imagine what a hard time we had. I split rails and chopped wood like a man. I spun the cotton into threads for our clothes, 'cause we sewed everything by hand. Not like today with the machines and such. In the field, oh, Lord, the drivers was terrible on us. He'd ride up and down on his horse, and if you behind the crowds, you get a good licking with that bullwhip. I heard Mama say that one day that wicked driver whipped poor Leah till she fall out like she was dead. They dragged her out in the field and they rubbed salt and pepper they dragged her out of the field, and they rubbed salt and pepper on the blisters to make them burn real good. She jumped up alive, but she was so sore. Couldn't lay on her back at nights. She couldn't stand for no clothes to touch her skin after that whipping. Oh my, it was terrible. Left terrible scars. And she was a beautiful gal. We was treated like cattle. A man went about the country buying up Africans, like buying up cows and hogs and dogs. Oh, God. It was horrible. Oh, he was called a speculator. Then he sell us on the block in town to the highest bidders. We was very valuable, like property. Sometime when I was in town with Missy, it was so pitiful to see the children taken away from their mothers, still breastfeeding them. Mothers sold and away from their babies, and husbands sold away from their wives and children. One woman some bucker wanted to buy had a baby. Of course, the baby come. Some bucker wanted to buy was full with a baby. Was full with a baby, was full with baby. Of course, the baby come before he bought her. He said he hadn't bargained to buy the baby too, and he wouldn't. And they took that baby from the mama and sold the mama right off without her child. We wasn't allowed to go around and have pleasure as folks does today. We had to pass as if we had went off the plantation. And if we get out there and a bunch of million armed buckers called patter rollers, they come on us. And if we see that they have pass, and if you didn't have a pass, you was whipped. Give 50 or more lashes. And they count them lashes. If they say 100, you getting 100. We was afraid to tell our masters about the patter rollers because we was scared they'd whip us again. Because we was told not to tell. They sing a little ditty, something like this. Run, niggas, run. The patter rollers get you. Run, niggas, run. You better get away. Sometimes the Africans who was real strong and worth a lot of money would run away. These masters was real mean to them. That's why it caused them to run off. They'd run into the bush and live in the cave. They got along all right with what folks slipping things to them. And they'd steal the hogs, chickens, possum, anything they could get their hands on. Some buckers would help them too. In that section, some buckers would help them too in that section. In that section, the ones who didn't believe in slavery or just couldn't afford to have any. Excuse me. One night, a runaway slave, he come across up from the deep south, and he had the bloodhounds on his trail. His breeches was all muddy and torn, and the hounds had tore him up when he tried to climb up in the tree. He got away and come running to our cabins. Well, Missy found out. And she said for us to give him something to eat, and we did. Then up come the patter rollers on their horses with their guns. Missy tried to get the man to tell him who he belonged to, or he belonged to, so she can buy him. But the patter rollers say they ain't selling him. And they put chains on him, around his arm and 2 around his ankles. and they put a metal mask on his face. Oh, with bells dingling on the end. That's where they could know where he was all the time. That was one poor man that never got to freedom. I felt so sorry for him because I know he must have had a mean master. I remember one thing that made me want to run away for the surrender come. You see, when I got up in size, it was my job to wash out the wooden pig trout. And after the pigs eat, I had to wash it down again so the youngins could eat they mush from out it. The children would pour the mush in there for the little ones to eat out of it. Then I cleaned it out again and towed it down to the field to rest it under the big tree to air out. Well, as I grow older, and one year just before the cold freezing come, Master Jack put all the young bucks and the young gals in the big barn, buck naked. He shout out to all for us and to make him some pickaninnies for to work his fields so he can put that money, so he can put them in his pocket to sell. That's how he made extra money, selling off the children. I met up with Elias and we vowed to be married. Well, the winter came and went. By summertime, plenty women had big bellies. It was plenty little babies being born that there spring. By the springtime, when us mamas had to work in the fields, we wrap up our babies in the swaddling cotton cloths and lay them out in the dried out pig trout off the ground to sleep, so the bugs wouldn't get at them. Sometimes Mammy would sit close by, and then Mammy would sit close by on a log stump, mending clothes, fanning the babies in the heat. Sometimes she'd breastfeed them too, like they was her own. She was the wet nurse. She even nursed the missus. She even was the wet nurse for the missus youngins too. Well, this one day it was very, very hot. While the babies was all laid out and lined up in the trout, we was out in the fields working. Well, Missy shouted out for Mammy to come up to the big house. Seemed like Cookie was sick that day. And they wanted Mammy to fix the supper. Well, Mammy went up to the back door to tell Missy she couldn't leave the babies because they was down there in the trout and she was looking over them. And that because their mamas was out in the fields, and just then thunder struck. Lightning flashed. The rain came down so fast, hard, like it was raining cats and dogs. The lightning hit the tree, and the tree split in half, and half the tree just missed the babies in the trout. Oh, we was out working, and when we look up, that mean old overseer, he took out his whip and said, "Y'all keep working." Well, just missed them babies. That rain never stopped. Oh my God, the rain came down way out yonder in the fields. That mean old devil overseer kept us working out there in the whip in that terrible rain. The rains never stopped till the sun came down. Oh, we all ran to the trout for our babies. We was worn out, tired, but it was too late. All the babies was dead, drowned in the pig trout. Me and Elias' little baby girl was floating there dead. From that day on, I promised myself I would run off from that terrible place with none but pure misery. Every time it rains, I think of my baby girl. And I cry.
If the earth could fly away, could you see her flying straight through space and time? leaving all humankind behind. If she could fly away, if she could fly away, so far away. If the earth could run away, could you see her gathering all the trees and plants, all the animals, all the birds and fowl, every creeping thing? They have never been her foe, never harmed her blessed soul. If she could run.
Not soon after that, me and Elias started sneaking off late into the night, meeting up with our folks down by the swamp. Elias said he come to learn that the war for our freedom was going on for some time. And we was not far from the freedom line. I had no idea where we was. I just felt like I wanted to fly away. It was already 3 years before the war when they listed for the colored soldiers. And time went on and Elias went to fight in that war and he never come back. He was a good man. And I remember it's like it was yesterday. Because they was talking in the cabin and they was talking in the hall. But I listened kind of careless, not thinking about it all. And on Sunday too, I noticed they was whispering mighty much, standing all along the roadside when they let us out of church. But I didn't think about it till the middle of the week, when my Elias, he come to see me. But somehow he couldn't speak. But I see it all in a minute when he come to see me before they listed for colored soldiers and my Elias gone to war. Oh, I hugged him and I kissed him. And I begged him not to go. But he told me that his conscience, it was calling to him so, and he couldn't bear to linger when they had a chance to fight for the freedom they would give him and the glory of the right. So he kissed me and he left me when I promised to be true. They put a knapsack on him and a coat all colored blue. So I give him Pap's old Bible from the bottom of the drawer when they listed for colored soldiers and my Elias went to war. But I thought of all the weary miles he would have to tramp, and I just couldn't be contented when they took him to the camp. While my heart it not broke with grieving till I seen him on the street. And I felt like I could go and throw my body at his feet. His buttons were shining and his face was shining too. And he looked so strong and mighty in his coat of soldier blue that I hollered, "Step up, Manny," though my throat was so raw. When they listed colored soldiers and my Elias went to war. Old Miss cried when Massa left her, and young Miss mourned her brother Ned, and I never knew they's feelings was the very words they said. When I told them I was sorry, they had done give up they all, and they only seemed more prouder that they men's had here to call. Both my masters went in gray suits, but I loved the Yankee blue, and I felt that I could sorrow for the losing of them too, but I couldn't, 'cause I didn't know the half of what I saw. 'Twas they listed for colored soldiers, and my Elias went to war. Master Jack came home all sickly. He was broke for life, they said. And they left my poor young master somewheres on the roadside, dead. When the women cried and mourned him, I could feel it through and through, 'cause I had a loved one in the way of danger too. Then they told me that they laid him somewhere else way down south to rest, with the flag he fit for shining there across his breast. Well, I cried, but then I reckoned that's what God had called him for. When they listed for colored soldiers, and my liars went to war. Well, that war was on and them rebels was mad as hell. The Wheeler Cavalry, they Federates.
I'm on my way.
The Wheeler Cavalry. The Confederates come through, stole everything they could find and killed a pile of slaves. They was losing that war. They come around checking. They ask the slave if they want to be free. And if the slave say yes, then they shot them down. But if they said no, they let them go. Well, the ones that left standing, that was us. We had to dig the ditches in the woods and throw the dead ones right in the dirt. No singing, no praying, no nothing. The first cannon I ever heard nearly scared me to death. We could hear him going boom, boom, boom all around. I thought it was thunder. Then Missy say, "Listen, Mary Ella." Then Missy say, "Listen, Mary Ella, hear them cannons. They's killing our minions." And she cried. I run in the kitchen where Mama was cooking dough. Missy was crying. Mammy say she ain't crying because the Yankees killed them minions. She doing all that crying because she's scared we gonna be free. Well, sometime later, there was one of the blackest clouds come up the main road. They was the Yankees. Them Yanks got off their horses and the footmen stabbed them shiny guns in the dirt. They call all the slaves out the field and says, "You's all free." Oh man, we was shouting and laughing and going on crazy. Them Yankees was shaking hands with the slaves, calling them Sam and Dinah and asking us all kind of questions. They busted the lock up on the door at the smokehouse. They took out all the hams and the chickens. They went to the ice house and they took out all the brandies. Oh man, such a time. Them Yankees run Massa Jack clear away and took the horses for themselves, and they took the house for a hospital. They took all the master's clothes and gave them to their friends. They gathered up all the cotton, the corn piece, everything that was in the barn. Yeah, they did. Then they made the white folks cook for the coloreds, and then they served us while we ate. They made them Yankees made them do for us like we done for them. They showed them buckers what it was like to work for somebody else. The Yankees stayed on the place for the longest time. And when they did leave, there weren't a mouthful to eat in the house. They took all Master's horses and cattle with them. When them Yankees gone, Master Jack come back. He told us we had to find somewhere else to live. Course, some of the folks had already gone. And we heard that we could follow this bright star in the sky to the north, to the Yankee camps. So we packed up the little we had and we piled us off that, and a pile of us walked off that plantation. It was a long and hard road to walk, miles and miles. We just had to do as they say. We had just to do as they say, persevere. We just had to do as they say, persevere, or as we say it, keep plugging away. So from that time on, that's what we did. Because I have a humble little motto that is homely though it's true, and that's to keep plugging away. It's a thing when I have an object that I always try to do. And that's just to keep on plugging away. When you rise in storms to quell, when opposing waters swell, it never fails to tell to keep plugging away. When that hill is high before you and that path seems hard to climb, you just keep plugging away. And remember that success comes to him who bides his time, and you keep plugging away. From the greatest to the least, none are from the rule released. Be thou toiler, poet, or priest, we just kept on plugging away. We dug away beneath the surface because there was treasure further down, and we kept plugging away. But let the rain come down in torrents, let the threatening heavens frowns, we just keep on plugging away. When the clouds have rolled away, there will come a brighter day, all your labor to repay. And we just kept on plugging away. There was lots of scorn to swallow, and there was lots of pain, but we just kept on plugging away. And we just kept on plugging away.
Oh, freedom, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom, oh, freedom over me, and before I'll be a slave.
We just kept on plugging away.
To freedom land. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way. Praise God, I'm on my way.
When we get to the Yankee camp, all you could see was Africans, slaves, hundreds of them, sick, wounded, and starving. The Yankee was calling all of us contraband. Some was runaways, some soldiers all wounded and mashed up, some just plain old worn out slaves. We was weak too, but once we get a bit of food and our strength back up, I was able to do a little nursing, yes. One contraband soldier took a fancy to me, and we made our pledge. Some call it jump the broom, but we didn't call it that. It's something the Buckwers made up to make fun of us. We call it our pledge of marriage. Well, his name was Ella Grandberry, and he was a wounded soldier, but I took good care of him because he turned out to be a backbone and not a wishbone. Oh my. In the camp in the woods nearby, the Yankees helped us build little houses. They said that we was in free country, but it belonged to a man named Penn. They was like poor white folks' houses we built, little shacks made out of sticks and mud, with sticking mud chimneys. They was full of cracks and freezing cold, and there was no lamps or oil. All the light come from the light wood not burning in the fireplace. The floors was dirt, but we was free. But no better off than when we was slaves. But we was free. So when the Yankee soldiers pulled out of the camp, they left a few things for us. Then we got paid a little money because we worked we did on a Quaker man farm nearby. We didn't have much or nothing, but we had each other and we made a way out of no way. Time went on, and so we all fixed up that little settlement and came into a little town, and it came to be built up to a little town. We built it with our own hands. We built up our own farm, a little school for the children, and for the big folks too to learn how to read and write together. A dry goods store, a barn with a chicken coop, sweet potato and collard green garden, yeah. Praise house too. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. The river was clean with fish. We all shared our cook-ups with one another. We soon fixed up a fair hope, nickel and dime society, so we could pull together to bury our people when they got old and dead, help each other with money in times of needs. If it wasn't for them good Yankees and the Quaker farmer nearby paying us to work his field, that surrender would have been worse than slavery. Well, in that little settlement, it was full of possum, shote, coon, and rabbits. We had so much possum that we called our little village Possum Trot. It was something of a little town full of us free colored folks who work hard together. So we got enough money to buy a little more land too. Every now and then, some real crazy and mean bruckers would come around who had guns. You know, when you have the guns, you got the power. And they would come and claim that the land was their land. Oh, but we knew that they had stolen it from the Indians. Mm-hmm. And besides, we didn't know that they stole it from the Delaware Indians. Besides, the Quakers run them off talking about the Bible and peace and things like that. Oh, well, because we was far up from Penn's Woods. Because we was far up in Penn's Woods. Far from the Ku Klux Klan. We hear they give plenty people trouble down south. Still lynching and killing free folks. Nothing for being nothing but Africans. We was awfully grateful to be in them Penn's Woods, building up ourselves together. Now that we was free. Oh my, Juneteenth, Jubilee. We finally got around to celebrating it with a little party down there in Possum Trot. There was other little settlements of contraband and free folks running from slavery. They built up too around us. And we finally had good reason to celebrate our freedom together with no fear or pain. Let me tell you about the party we had to celebrate our first Juneteenth. We had a great big party down at Times the other night. Down at Times one night. Was I there? You bet. I never in my life seen such a sight. All the folks from the settlements was invited and they come. They come trooping thick and cheering when them cheering hit a fife and drum. Everybody dressed their finest. Hush your mouth and get away. I ain't seen such fancy dressing since last quarter meeting day. Skirt gals all dressed up in silk and satins, not a wrinkle nor a crease. Eyes a bat, teeth shining, hair brushed back as slick as grease. Skirts all tucked and puffed and ruffled, every blessed seeming stitch. If you seen them with they misses, you couldn't swear which was which. Men's all dressed up in Prince Alberts, swallowtails to take your breath. I can't tell y'all nothing more about it. You ought to see it for yourself. Who was there? Now who you asking? How you expect I was gonna know? You think I stood and counted everybody at the door? Old man Barber's houseboy Ike, he brung that gal Melinda Chain, her hanging on his elbow hammock, strutting with a cane. I gotta do all that. Okay. End.